Today we survey still more hard data from tens of thousands of MTGO cube decks as we tackle the Dekkaru Cube. Welcome to Cultic Cube, where we cube religiously. We make you better at cube and make your cube better. We are in part 2 of the KubeCon data analysis. If you haven't yet seen part 1, stop everything and go check that out now. There we introduce the project, talk about the substance of the data that WOTC gave us, and come to grips with the Cultic Cube. Here we learn about how people interacted with the Dekkaru Cube, which is Cultic's sister cube designed by Gwen Dekker. Personal obligations prohibit Gwen from working on this video, so I'm afraid that you're stuck with me, John, once again. Gwen worked up robust notes on his environment, and he has been an invaluable contributor to our data analysis think tank. I lean heavily on Gwen's insights here. Just as in the case of our discussion of Cultic, a number of caveats exist. As we discuss higher and lower performing strategies and cards, bear in mind that these results obtain only in this specific environment. Furthermore, although we have a huge amount of data at our disposal, we don't have access to deck lists, pick histories, and so on, which constrains the level of analysis we can do. In Dekkaru, as in Cultic, aggro posted the best archetype results. Here, white was the dominant aggro color. Mono white had a positive match win rate against every deck in the field, and 7 of the 8 highest performing decks ran permutations of Mardu colors. Green cards had the lowest average rate of match wins, and base green multicolor decks saw the least success in the environment. The most popular decks were Azorius, Rakdos, and Dimir, which were drafted at a pretty similar rate. When we look at the cards that contributed to the greatest number of match wins, we see that the top cards are white aggro, followed by red and then black aggro. The top 10% of the cube in terms of match wins consists of aggressive white cards, plus a handful of colorless cards and red cards. The bottom cards are an assortment of archetype pieces that didn't quite get there. The card that led to the fewest wins lagged remarkably far behind its peers, Wishclaw Talisman. Gwen's Dekkaru Cube is a super fun environment that offers broad, recombinatory support for all sorts of popular micro-archetypes. The MTGO datasets do not recognize micro-archetypes, and we cannot extrapolate their performance with any degree of certainty. I make a few observations about archetypes that I suspect might have been better or worse bets in this particular environment, based on how often their key cards led to match wins. The most successful micro-archetype appears to be Aristocrats. This may come as no surprise, given that the classic Aristocrats colors performed very well. It is impossible to disentangle, though, to what extent dedicated Aristocrat combo decks won, as opposed to, say, the Rakdos aggro deck, for whom Falconwrath Aristocrat is mainly an efficient, evasive, resilient beater. Perennial cube favorite micro-archetype Blink appears to have fared well too, with enablers Ephemerate and Soul Herder contributing to its success. Many people talk about spells matters as if it were a deck, which I'm not sure is true, but I will use the term for convenience here. When we examine the cards that trigger when instants or sorceries are cast, we find that Young Pyromancer and Kiln Fiend are in the second quartile of cards, as organized by contribution to match wins, while Murmuring Mystic is in the 4th quartile. We are in the realm of wild speculation here, but some factors that might account for the differing win rate contributions of these cards include relative casting cost, the success of aggro, or the fact that decks that leaned into red did better on average than decks that were base blue. Let's look at a few of the micro-archetypes whose key cards contributed relatively few wins. First is Graveyard Matters decks, underpinned by the likes of Marin of Clan Nel Toth and Spider Spawning. Birthing Pod and its weaker cousin Prime Speaker Vannifar were, unsurprisingly, low contributors to wins, though I'll be the first to admit that Pod is a fun deck to try to make work. Finally, the wheel combo decks that rely on Leovold Emissary of Trest or Narset Parter of Veils, plus draw 7s, such as Windfall, found that most of the micro-archetype's key pieces fall at the bottom of the list. Let's take a quick tour through the cards that led to the most and fewest match wins as broken down by color. As usual, we can't set much store by the actual rankings here, but this survey might allow us to get a sense of some environmental trends. White's aggro cards, of course, had devastating effect, while white control elements contributed to fewer victories. Blue decks did well with early interaction. Black's cheap recursive creatures are good aggressive threats, and they also play well with self-sacrifice. Rites of Initiation is super interesting. It was only main decked by about 15% of people who drafted it, compared to over 50% for the other top two. Ryan Saxe offers the hypothesis that these observations, taken together, might mean that red-white tokens performed well. This is supported by the high ranking of cards such as Intangible Virtue and Goblin Bombardment. Green has some relatively recent cards helping decks to victory. The gold cards that top the list are aggro pieces, while those at the bottom tended to be narrow components of parasitic archetypes. Colorless tells a similar story. Our friend Usman Jamil is over the moon that the card he has championed since day one, Heirloom Blade, contributed to many victories. The lands do not offer many surprises. Creature lands made positive contributions, and in fact an item that is not visible from this list is that if we count Treetop Village among green cards, it was among green's top 5. In a moment we will look at the top 10 pack 1 pick 1s of the cube, and check this list against win rate contribution. Allow me to recall to your attention that I have a Patreon that supports the work I do for Cultic Cube and my podcast, Chateau Cube. I would be honored if you'd consider joining our Patreon family. Also, I have partnered with TCG Player, Inked Gaming, and Amazon. Any purchases that you make through my affiliate links will benefit me at no additional cost to you. Thank you. A final point is that Gwen had been doing good work examining pack 1 pick 1s. He compared the top picks of players who went undefeated to the top picks made by the rest of the field. Then, Gwen further ordered these lists by the average number of match wins that each card contributed to. A few remarks here. There was strong agreement about the most desirable first picks. It isn't as if the most successful players have a vastly different secret pick order than everyone else. Moreover, while these data are entirely environmentally dependent, notice that the highest picks do not map onto main deck wins in a frictionless way. Not a single one of the cards in either top 10 list broke into the top quartile of winning cards. This may be because the cards were shoehorned into decks for which they weren't suited, or for other more abstruse reasons. Less than half of these top 10 are in the second quartile, and the rest are dispersed among the bottom half of the cube as organized by main deck wins. As an aside, the win rate contribution of these cards is illustrative of the difference that context makes. In the Cultic Cube environment, Fractured Identity and Counterspell, for instance, are to be found in the first quartile of performers. Big thanks to Gwen for allowing me to present the data surrounding the Dekkaru cube. I feel such a kinship with this cube experience, given that Gwen and I designed Dekkaru and Cultic in tandem, specifically for this MTGO event. The cubes worked well, I feel, at delivering very different patterns of play, even as they operated within recognizable legacy cube space. And the Dekkaru cube is a blast to play, as I can personally attest. Thanks to Wizards for giving us access to these data. Tune in next time as Parker grapples with 2 datasets in tandem and strives to answer questions that are of moment to the drafter, such as how we can define over and undervalued cards in a mathematically rigorous way. Let's keep hanging out and chatting Cube.